Today. We're here for two reasons. First, to honor the sacrifice of these men and women in blue who put their life on the line every single day to protect us, and the vital role that law enforcement plays in safety and the well-being of our communities and our districts. And secondly, to highlight a bipartisan solution that we all are working on to protect our communities and schools from the terrible acts of violence that we've seen and are getting to be almost routine. They're tragic. Given the horrific tragedies that have occurred recently at both the STEM school in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, and the Poway synagogue shooting in Southern California, and not to forget the unfortunate anniversaries of Columbine, Parkland, Virginia Tech, and Santa Fe, which this upcoming Saturday, by the way, is the anniversary, and took place less than 15 miles outside of my congressional district down in Texas. We must be doing more to prevent these types of atrocities from occurring. The American people are desperate for a solution, and we've got one. We've got a solution to help this. The Bipartisan Threat Assessment Prevention and Safety Act, better known as the TAPS Act, has been co-sponsored by almost 80 members of Congress, perfectly divided between Republicans and Democrats. And the bill has been endorsed by nearly 50 organizations and associations, including the Fraternal Order of Police, the National Sheriff's Association, and the International Association of Chiefs of Police. Also endorsing this bill are many mental health associations and victim survivor advocacy groups like Sandy Hook Promise and many others. Our goal is to take a scientifically validated process that has been in place literally for decades now. And it's even used by the Capitol Hill Police, right where we're standing, to protect us members of Congress and to make it readily available on the state and the local levels. So let's continue to work together, and as the group of us here today currently are, to stop these tragedies before they can occur, because the truth is there's no reactive method that is fast enough to stop it before the first shot is fired. And we know that once the first shot is fired, it's too late. We've failed. So thank you all again for being here, and I will be happy to take any questions at the end of the conference. But let me introduce to you, we have several Congress members here, and I'm very proud that they're all here, but I'm going to introduce to you Representative Katie Hill from California, who has been a tremendous supporter of this effort and a pleasure to work across the aisle with.
Thank you.
And Katie, I had the pleasure of meeting your father as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you all so much for being here, and I'm so proud to join you this afternoon, Representative Babin and all of you here. I want to thank you for your work on this critical issue, as well as Val Demings, who, although she wasn't able to join us today, she's been a leader on this as well. My name is Katie Hill, and I'm the Congresswoman from California's 25th Congressional District. My hometown is home to many of the police officers, firefighters, and nurses who serve all of Los Angeles County. My community is rooted in that service, and it's the value that I grew up with, and one of the reasons I chose to serve my community by running for office. My dad here is an Air Force veteran and currently works as a police officer. In fact, he's here with us as part of a large group from our district who flew out for Police Week. As a little girl, I remember what it was like to wonder if my dad would make it home at night. I remembered being so scared for his life because he was on the front lines protecting mine and all of the other members of my community. I was proud of him then, and I'm proud of him now. But unlike then, I now have the opportunity to fight for him and the men and women serving just like him. Protecting and supporting our law enforcement should not be a partisan issue, and the group here with you today demonstrates that we can have meaningful legislative reform that works across the aisle. For too long, we've seen the lives of our law enforcement threatened by guns that have no business being on our streets, by violence that could have been prevented, and by mass casualties that we should have seen coming. The greatest country in the world should have the greatest security procedures in place, and that's why I'm so proud to support the Threat Assessment and Protection and Safety Act. We'll call it TAPS from now on, with Representative Babin. TAPS institutes a process that will identify, investigate, assess, and mitigate threats before they happen. That means safer schools, safer police officers, and safer communities. To stop tragedies before they occur, our states and communities need training, resources, and support, and that's where this bill comes in. The day after I was elected to serve as the Congresswoman for California's 25th, tragedy struck just outside my district. The borderline shooting took the lives of 13 individuals, most of whom were local college students 2 of whom were veterans. In fact, members of my staff and I were planning to attend the line dancing night at the borderline the following evening. My stepsister's roommate climbed through a window in the bar to escape that night. And even before the borderline shooting, 3 members of our community died in the Las Vegas massacre. One of the individuals who died at the borderline shooting had previously survived the Las Vegas shooting. These events are taking place every day in communities across our country, and they are becoming all too often. We cannot sit by and do nothing. Today, in honor of Police Week and in honor of all the senseless acts of violence that have taken too many members of our communities, I'm proud to support the TAPS Act. It means so much to me to be able to share this with our law enforcement and with my dad. In today's political climate, any solution that we can successfully implement has to be bipartisan. We can and should continue to have necessary, difficult conversations, but we also need solutions that can stop people from dying right now. We don't have to agree on everything, and in fact, we won't, but we can all agree on the fact that we want our communities to be safe. I'm so proud to stand here with our law enforcement officers and with our police. Thank you for all you do. And I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dan Crenshaw.
Thank you all. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Congressman Babin, for your leadership on this issue. I am proud to be a co-sponsor of the Threat Assessment Prevention and Safety Act. As you know, that will be called TAPS from now on, because it is something we truly need. It develops a national strategy to prevent violence and provide at-risk communities with the resources they need. The fact is that behavioral threat assessments work. They are an effective preventative tool if only we can get them in the hands of those who need them. Just as we protect our president and other government officials, we must protect American citizens from attackers in the most efficient and effective way possible. These tools are actually used by a number of agencies already, including the Naval Criminal Investigative Service and the FBI. It's just a matter of better disseminating the lessons learned and helping communities in implementing them. These tools need to make it down to a local level. Teachers, counselors, law enforcement, they should all have better access. We're joined here by law enforcement on Police Week. First off, thank you to you all and your fellow law enforcement officers across the country for your dedication to protecting our communities and our families. Many of these law enforcement teams around the country know that the benefits of this strategy would make a difference in their communities. And the TAPS Act does not create a one-size-fits-all solution, but acknowledges that there are differing needs across the country. This bill establishes a joint behavioral threat assessment and management task force within the Department of Homeland Security. As a member of the Homeland Security Committee, I believe this new task force would fit in well with the current functions and responsibilities of the department. DHS is more than capable of carrying out and coordinating this function. In addition, this bill creates new grants to establish community-based behavioral threat assessment units across the country to implement the national strategy. No one in our country should have to live in fear, especially in schools, universities, workplaces, and places of worship. The TAPS Act is a way to stop such violent attacks in their tracks. Far too often there are patterns of behavior that should set off alarm bells, but the warnings go unheeded. Our country is failing to connect the dots, resulting in the murders of innocent Americans. Students like Kendrick Castillo from STEM School Highlands Ranch in Colorado and Riley Howell from UNC Charlotte sacrificed their lives in the face of an attacker to save others. They died heroes, but they shouldn't have had to. Nearly a year ago to this day, the state of Texas suffered tremendous loss when a teenager opened fire in Santa Fe High School, just southeast of Houston, killing 10. In the wake of the Santa Fe shooting, Texas Governor Greg Abbott proposed a series of measures to put in place a statewide threat assessment system, which aimed at preventing at-risk students from committing violent acts. The measures also recommended the ways that Texas schools could immediately improve safety, such as reevaluating school entrances and exits and placing law enforcement on school campuses. Governor Abbott has the right idea at the state level, and it's time that Congress follow his example to enact such efforts at the federal level. We need a comprehensive approach to preventing and responding to these attacks, and the TAPS Act will do just that. This bill will help make our communities around Texas and the country safer, and I encourage all members of Congress to support this bipartisan piece of legislation. And I am honored to turn it over to my colleague from Virginia, Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger.
Thank you.
My name is Abigail Spanberger, and I represent Central Virginia's 7th Congressional District. And as we are here observing National Police Week, it is so important to recognize the sacrifice of our country's law enforcement officers as they keep our communities safe and strong. So I thank all of the officers who are joining us today and all of those who may be tuning in across the country. Thank you for your selfless service. I'd also like to thank Congressman Babin for his leadership here today in making today possible. Police Week is a unique opportunity on Capitol Hill. It's a chance for us to reaffirm what we can do, that we can do more, and that we can create and pursue efforts to counter targeted violence. Right now, we need to give our law enforcement officials the tools that they need to carry out their critical missions in safer ways. And we need to use the work and the knowledge of experts to actually address the dangers that our officers face. I'm a former federal law enforcement officer and a former CIA officer. I spent enough time in law enforcement to just have a small scope of an understanding of what it is that these officers go through every single day. And I'm humbled to stand before them, and I'm proud to be part of what I believe to be a real step in the right direction in addressing violence in our communities, keeping our officers safe and our communities safer. I'm proud to stand here as we discuss the TAPS Act. The safety of our police officers and their families should never be a partisan issue, and this legislation presents an opportunity for us to work together and an example of where we are to create legislation that can save lives. This strongly bipartisan bill, currently 38 Democrats and 38 Republicans, would help address the threats that our police officers and our communities face as a whole each day. Our bill would use holistic assessments of experts across a range of fields, teachers, mental health professionals, prosecutors, to build a national strategy to keep our communities safe. Through the community-based threat assessments and management tools, the TAPS Act would give states the resources they need to protect lives and train the next generation of officers to embrace the best policies and practices to keep themselves and our communities safe. I look forward to advocating for our bipartisan legislation, and I hope the eventual recommendations of the task force it creates will prevent tragedies, strengthen the resiliency of our police officers, and improve our community-based policing across the country. It's now my honor to introduce my colleague, Congressman Palmer from Alabama.
Thank you. I do appreciate Congressman Babin's work on this bill, and Abigail and Katie's support of it, and Dan's. It shows that, first of all, this is a talented freshman class, a highly intelligent freshman class, and it shows our ability to work together. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but I was on the baseball field on June 14, 2017, when a gentleman walked up to the outfield end of the third base dugout and fired a shot at my colleague Trent Kelly. Thank God that shot hit the fence. I was the first one to call out that it was a gunshot. And as we tried to get to cover, I saw Scalise go down. I think if we'd had this type of tool available, that might have been avoided. I believe the TAPS Act will not only help save the lives of our children and the general public, I think it is a tool that will save the lives of our law enforcement agencies. Because if you can do the proper evaluation on the front end and do the interdiction, it ends a lot better than it does if you have to clean up the mess afterwards. So I really think this is a great tool. This is not all we're going to do. I've spent a great deal of time working with local school systems, talking about what we can do to make our schools safer, make our transportation hubs safer. But this is an excellent tool, and it's been proven effective in other places around the world. So again, I commend Congressman Babin and Congresswomen Spanberger and Hill and Congressman Crenshaw for their support of this. This is truly a bipartisan effort, and I look forward to the day that this is signed into law. Thank you.
Well, thank you so very much. As you see, we have a bipartisan group of representatives up here, and I can't thank them enough for getting on this bill. You see the value of it. We appreciate it. And I appreciate the service of all of our HPD. These are Houston Police Department officers right back here behind me, and we really appreciate them very, very much. Thank you for putting your lives on the line. And I see some more Texans standing out here. Texas Department of Public Safety, we appreciate all of them. We appreciate all of this is Police Week, folks. Well, we are honoring the police who put it on the line for us every single day. And so we just need to make sure that we continue to work for the bringing this bill to the floor of the House of Representatives. And we also have, it's being sponsored in the U.S. Senate with almost identical language. It may be identical. And we're going to get this bill, we're going to get it passed. And I think that President Trump will sign this bill. This is something that's been going on for far too long. And, you know, it's good to say that we can harden these schools and we can protect our students by locking down these schools. But let me tell you something. These criminals, these people that commit these acts will just go to the parking lot, or they will go to the nearest bar. They will go to the nearest place of gathering where churches or what have you, and they will commit these dastardly deeds there. So we need to make sure that we have the right tools, put the right tools in the hands of the right people, and local law enforcement, state law enforcement, so that they will have this same method, the behavioral threat assessment method, management method, that is used so effectively by the Secret Service, by the Capitol Hill Police, by the FBI, and many federal agencies. It needs to be down at the local level. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for being out here. We appreciate your support, and God bless. Thank you.